Welcome back to the show. You're listening to CentralCoastRadio.com. I'm your host, Kyle, and I'd like to talk to you about hundreds of badgers. Yeah, there's a movie that some people may have watched called Lake Michigan Monster, and it came out a few years ago, and well, it was pretty bonkers. It was this sort of a callback to the old black and white 1930s, 1920s adventure films, and it featured quite a lot of animation, quite a lot of wacky stunts, and the story was completely crazy. It was just about a ship captain putting together a team to go hunt a mysterious creature from Lake Michigan. Now, I personally loved that movie. It was directed by Ryland Brixton Cole Tews and written by Tews along with Mike Seslick and starred Ryland Brixton Cole Tews as well. Now, I personally loved that movie, loved it so much that I bought the special Arrow released Blu ray of it that came out a little while ago. Highly recommended film, but it was such a creative work. It was such a bizarre movie that it's hard to recommend. It's both hard to recommend but hard not to like at the same time. And I didn't know what the creators of that movie would do next, or whether they would just basically do something kind of similar or what. And I guess this movie is sort of similar to that, but it's, if possible, even more insane. Um, this movie is directed by the co-writer of the previous movie, Mike Cheslick, and written by Cheslick with Ryland Brixton Cole Tews. Ryland stars in this movie as well as a character called Jean Kayak. Now, Jean is an absolute alcoholic, bum, drunken Applejack salesman. Complete idiot, doesn't know anything. He's in the 19th century winter Alps in the snow, and he eventually finds himself trapped in the elements when his cider house explodes, and he needs to learn how to survive, how to provide for himself, how to hunt animals, how to forage. He doesn't know any of this stuff. He is a complete moron. He knows nothing. Now, he slowly builds up a little bit of a small amount of survival instincts, and then a bit more, and a bit more, and that's kind of what this movie is about. It's about this absolute zero going to hero, and the movie is called Hundreds of Beavers because as Jean learns a little bit more and a little bit more about survivaling, he eventually becomes something of a furrier. He becomes a trapper. He starts with rabbits, moves on to beavers. He eventually meets a furrier who he sells his pelts to. The furrier is played by Doug Manchesky, and he meets this furrier's daughter, played by Olivia Graves. He falls head over heels in love with the furrier's daughter, and they begin to bond. And slowly, as Jean brings the furrier more and more pelts, he eventually wants to marry the furrier's daughter. The furrier tells him the only way that he's going to be allowed to marry his daughter is if he brings him hundreds of beaver pelts. And this is where the plot of the movie comes from. But uh, the actual moment doesn't come until like half an hour before till the end of the movie. It is just I'm not joking when I say that this movie is absolutely bonkers. The humor is so creative, but it's very basic. It's kind of this. It's done in the same sort of way as Lake Michigan Monster, but even more abstract, I guess. There's no dialogue in it whatsoever, other than one or two words uttered in the film here or there. And a lot of the time, it really is the character of Jean going in circles around his hunting line, his hunting grounds, and the movie gets more and more and more crazy as it goes along because every time, even when he's basically doing the same thing over and over again, it gets more and more crazy every time he does it, and it's there's always a gag. It was never boring. It never got old. Like every time he passes the same location, he's learning something else, or he's picking up new information, or there's some sort of visual gag or creative gimmick which makes that scene worth it. The movie seems very heavily inspired by from things such as Mr. Bean to Buster Keaton, Georges Méliès films or silent movies, and even in this one, much more than I noticed with Lake Michigan Monster. This one seems to be heavily inspired by video games as well. Just when he goes to the furrier's shack and sees what he can buy with his pelts, and it really is like the user interface of a video game. The movie is made up of really thousands of composite shots. Like the main draw of this movie, I think, it beyond the comedy is just how much work has gone into putting it together. Like for such a seemingly low budget film, it just has so many visual effects all the way through it. The composite shots that are in it, I guess, are best described as being something like a live action cartoon sequences. It's the kind of thing which appears in a lot of Wes Anderson movies. I think fans of Wes Anderson's films would really appreciate this movie. Um, but usually, when these kind of scenes appear in a Wes Anderson movie, it's a very brief moment, and it's just a complete weird sequence where logic flies out the window and yeah, the characters kind of act like cartoons. But this entire movie is made up of these partially animated scenes. There's no there's no animals in the movie. He's hunting like sock puppets and little like puppeteered animals or just flat out people in badger suits or rabbit suits or dog suits or wolf suits. I can't stress just how insane this movie is. There isn't much of a plot. I mean, there is a plot, but there isn't much of a um like there isn't much of a story to it. It really is every scene building on the scene before it, and the movie just getting more and more bizarre and crazier as it goes along. It exists in no realm of reality whatsoever, but it's still so interesting to just watch what this character is getting up to, and just as he this journey that he goes on from being this complete idiot to being basically the the Superman of trappers. I really think that if you're not looking for any kind of a serious movie whatsoever, you're just looking for like a fun adventure film, this is for you. It really is it's such a fun movie. As then, it's such a weird movie. It's not like anything that I've seen before, but I can't help but I can't help but love it. Um, I really don't know what else to say other than you really should. I think there's something in this movie for everyone. I believe that it's a movie that um, would translate across all languages. I think it's a movie that there's not really anything there's some cartoon violence in it as far as killing animals and stuff like that, as far as being a hunter is concerned. But it's not horribly violent or over the top because he's killing stuffed animals. Like when he kills a stuffed animal, there's fluff and fur and everything. When he goes to see the furrier's daughter and she's butchering the animal, she's pulling like felt guts out of out of these animals. The whole thing, it's not adult themed in the way that say Team America is, the way it's puppets and there's violence and gore in that. No, it's I really do think that this movie has something for everyone. I'm not sure if I could say that it's for kids, but I don't see how it wouldn't be for kids because it's so silly and so just so goofy and so slapstick. Um, and on a technical side, I can't help but marvel at just how much work would have gone. I believe this was in production for like 4 years or something. And yeah, you can just tell there's thousands upon thousands of composite shots in this movie. The entire film is like one big special effect. It's it looks a lot of people would see it and just think it looks cheap or whatever, but I can't help but marvel just how much work would have gone into making this thing, and for it to be as clever as it is and for it to be as funny as it is. It's one of those movies I had a smile on my face the entire time watching it. And yeah, I really, as much as I liked Lake Michigan Monster, I didn't think that they would make a movie as good as that. They did. This one is even better than Lake Michigan Monster. So if I was going to give this a rating, I'd have to give this 5 out of 5. I absolutely love this film, and I'm hoping that I get a chance to see it in a cinema at some point. Or if they release a Blu-ray of this, the same one that they did Lake Michigan Monster, I'm right there day one. Because yeah, I highly recommend this movie. I think anyone that's a fan of uh, Sam Raimi, Wes Anderson, cartoons, Buster Keaton, George Méliès, and all those kind of things, this is a movie for you. Highly entertaining, highly enjoyable. Do yourself a favor and check it out. You're listening to CentralCoastRadio.com, and we will be back right after this.